This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Good afternoon, church family. I pray God has continued to keep you safe and healthy. I hope you are all doing and feeling well. I'm not sure when you'll be watching this video, but I can promise you, as this is being recorded, I am enjoying a glorious day that God has made, and I am rejoicing and glad in it. The season of fall has finally reached us, and its first mornings have been cooler, with the afternoons not being nearly as hot. Many might say, and I would agree, this is the most comfortable season of the year. As I read through our Old Testament lectionary passage for this week, I thought about comfort, being comfortable, or actually I thought about how uncomfortable the Israelites must have been working daily for the Egyptians. But God freed them from those miserable conditions. God took them away from those who oppressed them and chose Moses to lead them to the promised land, a land of milk and honey, a land where they might be more comfortable. In today's devotional titled Journeying Through the Wilderness, we will hear about the Israelites as written in Exodus 17, verses 1 through 7. We'll hear how they responded to their being freed. We will also hear of their complaints and the options they had. And we just might see some similarities between the journey of the Israelites and our own journeys. Scott Mickles wrote the devotional I share with you today. The story of Exodus is a story of movement, a story of growth and maturation. It is a story of the giving and breaking of commandments. It is a story that climaxes on a mountain and culminates with a look to the promised land. Yet before any of that, captivity must be broken. Deserts must be traversed. The promised land is obtained only through journeying the highs and lows on the mountain and in the wilderness. The journey begins with the rise of a king who did not know Joseph, a king who would continually try to beat the Israelites down, causing them to cry out to God for help. Hearing their cry, God appoints Moses to lead the Israelites out of their captivity to the promised land. On the way, the Israelites witness the 10 magnificent signs that God uses to convince Pharaoh to let the Israelites go. After escaping from the pursuing Egyptians through the Red Sea, a celebration of singing and dancing commences. The songs of Moses and Miriam in chapter 15 express the gratitude of the Israelite people as they revel in their journey from bondage to freedom. But the singing and dancing stopped quickly, for the Israelites now find themselves in the midst of a terrible desert where food and water are difficult to find. In the 3 major sections immediately following their celebration, we read of concern for the basic necessities of life. In chapter 15, just after the celebration, there was complaining about the bitter water, and God turns that bitter water into sweet. Then in chapter 16, as the Israelites complained about food, God once again provided. But here in chapter 17, there is no water at all, and the Israelites are concerned that they may die of thirst. They are so thirsty, in fact, that they long to go back to captivity, back to abuse and lack of freedom. The circumstances are so dire, the Israelites long to return to bondage. So there are three options for Moses and the Israelites at this point. Their first option is to return to Egypt, to go back to their slavery. At least there they must have thought they would know what was going to happen each day. And there they apparently would have water. The second option is to stay where they are, quarreling with Moses and dying of thirst. The third option, at least for Moses and some of the elders, is to go on ahead of the people to find water and God. God commands Moses to set out from camp with the same rod that was used while in bondage to a place where God will meet him and where Moses will find water so that the Israelites might live. By now, the story should sound very familiar, for it is our story too. We have also been a people stuck in bondage and in need of deliverance. We have also seen God's wondrous signs and deeds, and we also have rejoiced in our freedom. And yes, we have also found and will continue to find ourselves in the wilderness from time to time, where there is no food. And if there is water, it's bitter. We have the same choices today as those who came before us. We can decide that our captivity is easier, more stable and secure, and less frightening, and return to a life with fewer responsibilities and more answers. Bondage is certainly easier at times. At least there we know what will happen each day. Another choice is to sit right where we are, complaining about what is now happening in our lives, longing for the good old days, and dying. Finally, our third choice, we can take a risk. We can step out in faith, and we can continue the journey. If we are to live and find the abundant life, it's the last step that we must take. The wilderness is a frightening place. But if we decide to go back to Egypt, we go back to bondage, where no growth, spiritual or otherwise, takes place. Likewise, we will never reach the promised land if we stay where we are. We must continue. We must continue on the journey through the wilderness toward the promised land. But we must be careful. Before we make our decision, we must realize that the wilderness is a frightening place, and going through it is difficult work. There will be times when we ask, like the Israelites, is the Lord among us or not? But we must remember that the Lord is among us. And not only among us, but the Lord is also out in front of us, leading us in our journey, showing us where to find the water that quenches our daily thirst, and meeting us so that we might find eternal life. I pray each of you who are watching this video would choose the third option, to step out in faith and continue on the journey God has sent you. With God's help, we will make it through the wilderness to the land which God has promised. So go with courage, and may God continue to bless you all.